she confessed everything. I haven't been able to talk with anyone about it yet. Someone I feel close enough to is out of town this week. My wife just confessed to me 2 nights ago that she had an affair with someone she knew in childhood that she reconnected with via social networking. I'm still in shock, but starting to also feel anger. She said that he was very persuasive, that they met twice and just talked, then she went to his home twice and slept together. She said she wished she could go back in time and not do it, but that she still loved our family and didn't want to get a divorce. I asked her if she still loved me, and she said yes. It bugs me that she said she still loves our family and only said she still loves me after I asked her. We've been married almost 20 years, have 2 school-aged children, twins that she stays at home to raise. She claims that she ended it with him, that she is not in contact with him, unfriended him, and will let me know if he tries to contact her again. I've read enough on this forum to know that anyone who responds to my post will understand how completely devastated I am. I am at work now, not working obviously, and finding it very hard to focus and concentrate on anything. I feel like someone who was just made a fool of on a stage at a show, someone who is the butt of a joke that a whole audience is laughing at. But I'm still shaking the hand of the person who played the joke. I told her that I love her, and our kids too, and don't want a divorce. She said she was sorry several times that night, that nothing excuses what she's done, despite the remark about how persuasive he was, then proceeded to start telling me what is missing in me. She didn't go very far with this, realizing that it might not be the right time. I started asking her questions about the affair. I didn't ask who the guy was. I now feel like I deserve to know his name, where he lives, and anything else I want to know. I don't want to know this, so I can do something stupid, like confront or hurt the guy. I just want to know. Is it appropriate that I know who it is? Since that night just 2 days ago, she seems to be acting like we're back to life as usual. I know that part of this is for the kids' sake, but it also bugs me that she isn't more emotional about it. Maybe it is a weight off her shoulders to have told me. Does that make sense? I feel the weight of a long road ahead. I realize that, relatively speaking. I may be lucky because she confessed to me, and I didn't find out about it secondhand. It must mean that she wants to rebuild our marriage. Right now, that is the only thing that comforts me at all. Bug hands. You can ask her about every detail of her encounters. I asked my wife and the oh my for the gory details. I read somewhere that your mind can usually come up with scenes that are much worse than what actually happened. My wife asked, why do you want to know? Well, I was grilling her just after catching her. It's an important part of the healing process. If you find yourself asking the same questions over again, I think it's because you can't fully process all of the information and you need to double and sometimes triple check. She should be open about it and not leave out anything. But a word of caution, if you are not ready to hear the gory details, then don't ask. I was ready and needed to know, so I asked. Others might feel better not knowing. I personally had to. As far as who it is, yes, you have a right to know how this will affect you and your healing process. Begin your healing process. I'm not 100% sure. I'd want to know. I know who my wife had her EA with because I know he knows to avoid me and her. My wife knows NC means no contact, and if she were caught, in my head it's game over. Her comment about him being persuasive is, I think, her way of saying, I don't want to hurt you by saying that at the time I wanted it, so I'm going to say he wanted it and I let it happen. My wife tried to convince me that what I caught her in, naked laying on another man, wasn't going to turn physical. She still thinks that. It's a way for them to feel more comfortable about it, like when you try to sugarcoat some bad news. As far as her attitude, I would imagine the kids are part of it. I don't have any, so I can't say that. My mother-in-law doesn't know anything about my wife's emotional affair, but even if we did tell her, she'd likely forget by the next day. She's old. My wife has taken similar steps in trying to be the same as usual, and it slows the process of healing. I'm sure others will chime in on this, but I think you need to sit down with your wife and talk about it. Things will get worse as she tells you what was missing from your marriage that allowed this to happen. She may blame you, but no matter what it is that was missing, it's never an excuse to cheat. You are partially responsible for creating an environment in which the emotional affair could happen, but you are not responsible for her decision to have an EA. As far as you are being lucky that she wants to rebuild the marriage, I think you are. You will both come out stronger, even though it doesn't seem so now. If my wife were half as enthused about rebuilding as your wife, I'd be happy. But she's not, and that's what's slowing down the process on my end. They find out what you did, work on fixing yourself. There will be others that will chime in soon enough. Let the emotional roller coaster roll. That you can let your boss know what you're going through so that if you aren't working while at work, he or she knows. If the pain becomes too much, some meds from the doctors may help short term. I found alcohol helps me, but that's a dangerous road to go down. Once your good friend is back in town, talk about it. Letting it out in words, not just on the net, will help clear your head. Take your time. Cheer Up responds. It has only been a few days since she confessed, but it feels like an eternity. The weird thing is that when we talk about just day-to-day stuff, on the phone or in person, she acts like nothing happened. I know sometimes it is for the kid's sake, but it still feels weird. You're also right about what I said to my child being the truth. I love them, all of them, so much and don't want our family to end. Man, it's hard. I'm starting to feel some more anger though, when I think about the fact that she left the kids with a sitter to go to his house to sleep together twice. It just about drives me insane. Basically, I paid a sitter so she could go duck another guy. Okay, I need to stop now. I don't know how things are going to play out. She wants to talk about her issues before we see a counselor. This seems okay, but I don't know that I can handle her telling me things about myself that basically caused her to do what she did. I'm going to make it clear to her that she had other choices. Eat away enough venting for tonight. I've only told my boss about it because I wanted her to know that I may need to take some time off. I don't plan to share this with many, only one or two others who I know will be discreet, just to help me get things off my chest. Since my last update, things have been fine. Just kind of living day to day, pretending nothing is wrong in front of the kids, family, and friends. I think you're right. Swedish that my wife just wants to put it behind her and not think about it. She has occupied herself with a new life goal of becoming an exercise instructor, which may help fill some of her needs. For example, I told her that night that if she really still loves me, I needed her to show it more, as in being more affectionate toward me in general. I just mean things like holding my hand, squeezing my arm like she used to, sitting close to me, all kind of thing. These are the kind of things that come naturally when you love someone. She has been better, but probably senses my emotional distance. I'm hoping to finally talk with my cousin about it a bit today. I still haven't been able to talk with anyone in person. I talked with another person last week by phone, but it really didn't help me much. It is definitely going to take time. I've been checking into counseling, and have found someone that I will probably have an initial appointment with, to see if I feel comfortable with her. My wife has said she will participate in couples counseling, but has not been too interested in the progress I've made finding someone. We just had a big wedding anniversary, and she said she wanted to wait until after to start counseling. She's also very busy with her exercise instruction work, and I know has trouble finding the time for other things between that and the kids. I'm still angry, sad, depressed, and know I need to start counseling soon and will. 1 year later this past winter, my wife acted weird when I needed to copy a number from her cell phone to mine, and I just innocently took her phone to look at the number. This aroused suspicion in me, and I checked her text messages and looked at her phone usage, things I never thought to do before. There were a bunch of texts from the same number a day or two before. Why won't you talk to me? I need to talk with you, etc. And one from our neighbor where he addressed her as Hey Sexy. So, I compared her text log with her contacts and found two numbers that had, by far, the most text messages to and from that were not in her contact. At this point, I had not confronted her and lived with this knowledge for weeks in agony. After all, we were going to counseling, actively trying to get things worked out, right? This couldn't be what it seemed. I finally contacted our counselor who advised that I wasn't just being paranoid and to call the two numbers. So, bitch deckty bussabies. I did and was greeted by a live answer on one and voicemail on the other. Both male voices that I didn't know. The voicemail gave his name, which I immediately Googled and found only one in my state. I then managed to get his home address and wife's name using the magic of reverse lookup. I confronted my wife the next day and found out that the live one was the Ohm from last spring and that she could not get him to stop contacting her. Dr. Voicemail, however, was her doctor 4 years ago, with whom she'd had a PIA that lasted a year and was still having what she called a friendship. A QL. So, what about Hey Sexy? He was our neighbor across the street. He passed of a heart attack just before Christmas, but she managed to squeeze in a couple of encounters with him last fall, just before we started counseling. So, these are the three that I know. She swears this is the whole story, but I may never believe it. We're still going to counseling. I made her write a nut and NC letter to Dr. Voicemail. She did it very begrudgingly, I wanted to send it to his home address, but let her convince me to send it certified mail to his office. I walked her through the process of blocking calls from those two numbers. This week, she is going to a conference in Las Vegas. I took off work to stay home with our kids. So, I'm feeling most of the feelings described here. I also feel like she had done these horrible things to me and has suffered no consequences. So I feel frustration and resentment over that. I'm not sure what to do about that. Should I have punished her by saying she could not go to Vegas, a trip she has been planning since last fall? Should I have insisted that the NC letter go to Dr. Voicemail's home to punish her and him? I don't really want to exact revenge or to punish her. I'm not her father. I'm her husband. But how do I deal with my feelings of resentment because she comes out of this seeming to be all happy and peppy and I am miserable? I'll ask our counselor, but I'm not completely satisfied with the answers and advice we've been getting from her so far. We're planning to take up with a new MC. Our previous one was a good start. She listened to us and provided feedback while in sessions, but didn't really give us any tools or homework to help us change things at home. Just to clarify some things from earlier. She had a physical affair with Dr. Voicemail in 2012-13, then stopped but continued a friendship. The other affairs were in 2015. July 4 triggered me since it was a 1-year anniversary of her admitting to the one affair. I find it difficult to put enough clear detail into these postings so that people can understand and respond appropriately. Totally my fault, and I am sorry. 3 years later, I kept my wife's wedding engagement rings as they were my mother's. My thin, gold band, engraved with, "I'll always love you." I sold it recently at a jewelry store for the weight for $20. I used the money to get carry-out pizza for my sons and me. Kind of wish I'd just thrown it into the Chesapeake Bay though. Someone might have gotten it later at a crab feast. It's been a long, painful road for me and my children. Had I been able to hear and taken more of the advice offered to me back then, it might have been shortened a bit. I thought if I only try harder, maybe she'll treat me like a human being. I just went through this for years to try to save a 20-plus year marriage for my kids. Now that I'm on the other side, she finally moved out 4 months ago. I know my kids will be okay. And so will I. My cheater wife acted remorseful, while at the same time blaming me for her cheating. I think perhaps many people who cheat are just too cowardly to end the marriage the right way, and don't want to give up a comfortable lifestyle with their spouse or their paramours. They wanted to have their cake and eat it too. That is how it seems to me. I don't know what her narrative is now, but I suspect she has somehow justified her behavior by making me into some kind of bad spouse. Whether she feels genuine regret may be deep inside, beneath the narcissism. Story 2. H and I have been together since I was 20 and he was 21. We have lived together for over 10 years and were married in 2009. We had planned to start a family in 2012, but unfortunately, I had a miscarriage in February 2012 and was actually in fertility treatment when his affair occurred. A treatment when his affair exploded and destroyed our marriage. And I always got along well, had similar interests and goals, lived a comfortable life, but did have our fair share of ups and downs, including my obsession with drinking, for which he received treatment for in 2011. And as I said, somehow, we managed to work through things. I thought we were best friends, partners in everything, business and life, and everyone in our life always thought of us as the perfect couple, and no incidents of cheating from either of us until 2012. 2012 was a hard year for us. Miscarriage, had a close family member commit suicide in March. My father passed unexpectedly in September, and we started fertility treatments as we were having trouble getting pregnant again. She also began an affair with a subordinate in July 2012. I now am aware of this, which he claims did not become a problem until December 2012. However, I believe it became a problem in Sep.co. Over the summer, I started noticing other women texting my HA a lot. Another woman is married with a 6-year-old child. Her texts all seem to be asking stupid work questions, complaining about her husband and kid, and other stupid comments. It seemed like my H barely responded, and for every 10 texts she sent, it seemed he would respond only once. Since I was never the jealous type and trusted my HI not to make a big deal out of this, but did warn him that they were not friends, but he was her boss. So be careful, because this girl had left her last employer after claiming harassment, and of course I did not want H to get in trouble. She agreed and just said she was some stupid girl who texted everyone. I then began noticing in August that he was working later and later. He always worked 70 hours a week, but was not coming home on his nights off, etc. And this was bothersome to me as we were trying to get pregnant, and I was very depressed over the miscarriage. At the end of August, I began noticing that every time my adjust and I would be out together, she would always text him that she was going to quit her job because she just could not take it, etc. And we began fighting about his relationship with this girl, as I felt it was inappropriate. By September, he was always at work, and 90 of his text messages that month were to other women, and when my father was in the hospital dying, she was texting him. Oh, and she also was texting him in the middle of my father's funeral. By October, he was acting even odder, hardly home at all. We barely spent time together, and when I accompanied him on a business trip to NYC in October, she texted him that she was quitting because she could not handle it anymore. All this time, he refused to admit anything was going on. We started fertility treatments in October, and he also began running late at night. I now know he was texting her. Needless to say, we were arguing about the texting. He kept gaslighting me, and I was getting angrier and angrier, but never thought he would really cheat. Everything blew up in November. When we had a huge fight about the texting, he made me cancel our vacation to Hawaii. I intercepted a text to another woman stating, I made my wife cancel our trip. I caught him via the iPhone. Him via the iPhone finder in parking lots, and he left me at the fertility doctor's I was making the IVF appointment. He actually took off and texted me, Sorry, I do not want kids. You need to find someone else who can give you a family. It has now come out that the other woman told him to tell me this. He refused to spend Thanksgiving with me. My father had barely passed away, and then I got all the TV we grew apart, have not been happy for years, and all the other infamous lines. At this point, I had enough as he was acting like a stranger and had become mean and nasty to me. He had always been kind and gentle with me. So I moved money to protect myself, to be able to pay our bills, and drew out my divorce papers. I am an attorney. I did all of this without telling him. However, my husband never asked for a divorce, nor did he speak with a lawyer. All this time, he was still gaslighting me and his family, claiming he was not cheating, but we fought all the time. We never should have gotten married, and that other woman was just someone that he talked with because they were both in bad marriages. He then began spending time with the other woman outside of work a lot. Not admitting it, but I hired a PI and found out more info. All the time, he was still lying about having an affair and blaming me. I contacted the other woman's husbands, who believed everything I told them, as he had been receiving the same treatment and he provided me with a wealth of information. Who even stated that most likely his wife started this, as my husband made a lot of money and the other woman had asked him for a divorce in November. But O would not let her move out with the son, so the other woman stayed. After my husband and the other woman found out, I contacted O. As expected, all hell broke loose. My husband and I was not happy, and the other woman began texting me the nastiest messages. At first denying the affair, but then she slipped up and admitted that she and my husband were going to be very happy. My husband then disappeared for 3 days, one of which was my birthday, and went to meet the other woman in New Jersey at a training seminar their employer was paying for. All this time, he was sending me nasty texts about let's separate, divide our money. He was going to move out, but would not pay for the bills. However, when I would ask him in person about these texts, he never had any recollection of saying he was moving out, etc. I think another woman was texting me from his phone. At this point, I was just waiting to serve him with divorce papers, and he had no idea that I had a PI report, phone records, expense receipts, etc. My plan was to surprise him with divorce papers. So I just kept smiling and nodding at him when he would laugh at me because he thought I wanted to reconcile. At this point, I had not exposed his work because I knew it may not be taken seriously, and my husband and the other woman would just lie. So in mid-December 2012, I had now attained a divorce lawyer. I sent the constable to my husband's office with the advice to pull my husband, the other woman, and my husband's boss out of the daily 8 sales meeting and serve them all. So I served my husband with divorce papers. No fault, subpoenaed the other woman to depose her, and served his boss with a subpoena for my husband's emails with the other woman, financial information, etc. My husband was hysterical that I did this and was calling his family crying that he was going to be fired. I was vindictive and I made up the whole affair. The other woman was upset and my husband's boss and the corporate lawyers were over the edge. Raced over the edge. After serving him, he finally retained a lawyer, and we hardly spoke for 7 weeks. We did not even wish each other a Merry Christmas. He was deep in the fog and not coming out. I'd also exposed his affair to all of our friends around the time he was served. However, still denied the affair, but since we were still living in the same house, and still are, his activities were obvious. He showed no signs of ending the affair, and I began to find hotel reservations for Nye, receipts for luxury shoes for other women, etc. All this time, I tried to implement the 180, and out with friends and tried to keep busy, even though I was dying inside as I loved him and so wished we could fix the marriage. He then refused to sell the house and told me he would never sell, would not pay me my percentage of the house, and would fight to give me nothing. I would always just respond that as a litigator. I was more than prepared to fight, and I had the stomach for litigation, but thought we should just try to settle so we could both move on. By January, this other woman had moved out of her home into a hotel, so each was there most nights but never officially moved out, and because she has a kid. She was often home on Friday and Saturday nights to watch me go out to socialize. I then noticed that Ish began calling his sister. I'm very close with her, and she has supported me 100 to find out about my whereabouts, asking around to see if I was dating. I caught him eavesdropping on me, and when he was home, he began asking me to go to hang out. I always declined. He began contacting me about stupid stuff, to which I always responded in a non-emotional, business-like manner. By the end of January, I had begun to move on, and even though I was devastated at losing the life we had built, I was trying to cope, and it was then that he began asking me if we could meet because we really needed to consider what we were doing. Divorce was really a serious thing, etc. At this point, I had no interest in meeting with him, as I knew he was still in the affair and I thought he was playing some type of game. But reluctantly, I agreed to meet with him, and he admitted he had had an affair with another woman. It never was supposed to happen. He wanted his old life back, and he really believed he was not happy in the marriage because another woman kept putting me down and telling him he was miserable. He said he was sorry and the affair was over and he was willing to do whatever it took. He said he had ended the affair, but it was a tough situation because they worked together, etc. I told him calmly and coldly. I did not trust him, thought this was a game, so I did not depose the other woman. Her deposition was scheduled for February, and besides, he had spent the night before at the other woman's hotel room. He still insisted he had ended it that day, because she was not a good person and he had a dream that we reconciled, had a family, and lived happily ever after. He also told me the other woman had now moved into an apartment and had begged him to move in with her, but he had refused because he wanted his marriage. I was still not buying his talk, but after almost 2 weeks, I stupidly began to soften. As he had been home every night, not being secretive of his phone, calling to check in, asking me to go on vacation. I declined and being helpful around the house. I then found text messages from her one morning, and he swore it was over. It was just a tough situation as they worked together, but he had a job opportunity in another state that would pay him a lot more money. So I could quit my job and either move with him or split my time between our home and the new location. He told me he thought we should get back to the IVF and have a baby. I kept telling him that no, I will not consider R until we go to Mexico. He goes to NC with another woman, quits his job, etc. He agreed to mix something he had refused all fall because he said I was the one who needed help, not him. However, a few days later, he started acting odd again, telling me that he got called in by the corporate lawyers again to be questioned about his affair, and that they told him I was vindictive, etc. He then told me he lied to the lawyers to save his job by denying the affair and telling them I was mentally ill. He said he was sorry, but he could not lose his job. He then took off for the next 3 nights to stay at the other woman's apartment. Has come to find out, they had gotten back together because she went crazy telling him she gave up her home and kid to move into an apartment so they could be together and start their lives. He then showed up at our house, begging for another chance, and the cycle of his games had now begun. We then went to a marriage counselor, who said he wanted to end the affair, but the counselor sensed H was ambivalent. We went to counseling twice, discussed boundaries. She explained that he was going to break it off officially the night before he left for vacation, so by the time he got back, the other woman would be over him. McKay and I told him this was not realistic, but he disagreed and promised he would stay at the house and not go to the other woman's apartment anymore. Well, for that week, he was home every night, and the other woman was sending him nasty messages, mainly about how horrible I was and how could he do this to her, and begging him to stay with her, etc. She began showing me all her text messages. She's a bunny boiler, and started almost vomiting information about the other woman. telling me she was a bad person, that she had told him she would pay my alimony. The other woman wanted him to get a quickie divorce and then she would get divorced, so they could get married, that the other woman was not a good mother, etc. He informed me that in January, the other woman made him promise that he would never speak to me ever again and that the other woman was obsessed with me, my life, and constantly bashed me. This went on for 5 days, with the other woman getting madder and madder, buying him stuff for his vacation, sending him notes begging for him not to leave her and telling him, "Please do not let your wife break us up," etc. Well, the night before his trip, he sent her a text message ending their affair and telling her NC and they were just now co-workers. She exploded, sending 56 texts in under 10 minutes. He seemed confident, but did tell me that he felt bad because she had feelings. I told him I did not care about his or her feelings. I cared about the abuse I endured. He then called me that Saturday, some March 9th, from work to tell me he was really sorry. He knew he should end it and wanted to put his marriage back together, but he just felt too bad for her as she gave up everything for him. I was gutted but not surprised. I told him good luck in life, and I was pushing the divorce. The divorce through faster and hung up. I then exposed his latest drama to our loved ones. When I saw him the next day, it was like I was looking at the same man who lied to me all fall. He was deep in the fog. It seems that when my husband is around me, he acts like the guy I've always known, but when he is with other women for a while, he completely changes. Another woman has noticed this as well because she's commented to him about this. So he was gone at the other women's for a few days, and then arrived home, refusing to leave the marital bed. We had previously separated rooms with me, moving to a guest room, but I then decided after he called me mentally ill to move him to a guest room and reclaim the master bedroom, and telling me he does not want to get divorced, but needs more time. I told him too bad. I want a divorce. He then spent 2 nights at home, refusing to leave my bed, no sex, and then spent 2 nights at the other woman's apartment. By last Friday, when I arrived home from work, he accused me of leaving a religious picture on his windshield while it was parked at the other woman's apartment. I did not do such a thing, and while I know where she lives, it is over 45 minutes from our home and that he had a new plan to break up with her. I told him I did not care, that I wanted this embarrassment of a marriage over with, but he proceeded to inform me that he was going to tell her I was sick. I again told him I was done and went out. Well, the next night we had a family obligation to attend together, and when he arrived, he informed me that he had ended the affair again. He then shut off his phone for over 12 hours because he did not want to see her texts. We dinnered together Sunday, and he informed me that when she cornered him in his office, cried that how could he leave her? How could he let me break up their true love, etc. But he had told her it was over. Well, since Sunday, she sent with 1,000 text messages. It's no exaggeration. The content of these messages was shocking, claiming I miscarried and we never had a child because God killed our baby so he and the other woman could be together, etc. Every single text message included a reference to me and how evil I was for breaking up their true love. The other woman is still married, has not filed for divorce, has left her son with her husband to play house with mine, how he has always been miserable with me. Our marriage was hell for him, etc. He allowed me to read these texts and ignored her, except to say she should go back to her husband. I have informed him NC is exceed, but he seems obsessed that if the other woman goes back to her husband, then she will leave him alone. Of course, the other woman is refusing to go back to her husband because she has morals and has now had sex with my husband. So how could she ever reconcile her marriage? My husband swears he is done with her, but they work together and she has told him she will not accept his decision to end this. He's tried to end the affair 4 times now, but keeps going back. While I know he needs to be firm with her, it's just such a crazy and dramatic situation, considering they work together. Now, I have not committed to reconciliation because his affair has not really ended, and despite my being unsure if I really want it to repair. I just am having a hard time detaching and applying the 180 again. I just cannot figure out if he is sincere about wanting to end the affair, but it truly is an addiction, and with them working together makes it impossible. Or if he just wants to be a cake eater and has no idea what he intends to do. While I know what matters most is what I want, part of me still loves him, for some strange reason after all he has done, and I'm so confused by this insane situation. He is still financially paying for all household bills after he gave me trouble in December, but it is very hard living in the same house and he will not move out. Ex-different mother woman wants him to move in with her, but he's refused, so he has told me, And apparently, the other woman has done similar things with other men before and has quite the reputation. Unfortunately, as crazy as the other woman's text messages are, she's not been sending them directly to me, so I really cannot get a tro against her. She did send my husband a text on Monday stating, "I am going to kill you," but he ignored it. Both my husband and another woman are acting insane. Apparently, they keep denying they are having an affair at work, but everyone knows. They just keep lying and think everyone believes them. Co-workers of theirs have informed me of their delusional beliefs. My husband also is still wearing his wedding ring to keep up the facade. My husband was also up for a promotion, but due to his recent behaviors, which he is still denying to his work, it appears he may not get it. He really threw everything we had worked for and built away. In December, my husband wanted to get the divorce over with quickly, but now he seems to want to drag it out. Says he does not want a divorce. My husband has not provided his financial statement as requested by my attorney. So now that complicates things. My husband has also violated the financial restraining order imposed on both of us per the pending divorce on 2 separate occasions by refinancing rental property and taking money without my permission. My husband also refuses to put the marital home up for sale and refuses to buy me out. So I will have to get a court order for this. My husband is just making this process unnecessarily complicated, and he even has his lawyer believing all his lies. My husband just believes he's above it all. I believe he may be a narcissist. I really need to detach. It is just so hard, but I have no choice now. I just do not understand how anyone could carry on like this and still claim they do not want a divorce, when months ago they did and talk about future vacations, home improvements, etc. It is just beyond me. A month later, well, since I last posted, my husband began IC. Went once, going again this week, and allegedly at this session they discussed that he should not go back to his affair, and that the counselor told him that our marital issues, his affair, were not that surprising considering we had a miscarriage, 2 significant deaths, and fertility issues. I do not believe any legitimate counselor would say all of this, and my husband seems to think these tragedies justify his affair. At least that is how I see it. Oh, and my husband told me that his counselor stated that if we had had a baby, my husband would never have cheated. It just gets more ridiculous. So now my husband has decided we should have a baby. This will not be happening, because it would fix all of our problems and get the other woman out of our lives. Chun's woman out of our lives for good. He even asks me about my cycle now. Of course, he had no interest when we were actually trying to conceive. Is supposedly still not seeing the other woman yet, right? I do not believe him. The other woman is still texting all kinds of hateful things to him, mainly about me, and honestly, her thoughts are evil. I cannot even imagine thinking, let alone saying, texting such things. Examples of these almost comical yet diabolical messages include, "Why can't I get my own man?" Just because they are not officially married doesn't mean she is not entitled to him. They are family now. I am not his wife anymore. He doesn't love me. He loves her. As to criticizing my appearance, telling him to ask his mom because she knows. His mother would tell him to choose her. Not true. My in-laws have been very supportive of me, and my mother-in-law thought this comment was crazy. She still refers to me as the piece of crap, and that I have no right ruining the most beautiful thing she has ever had. Oh, and the latest is she threatened my H that she was signing up for online dating. The other woman has allegedly been making scenes at his work. Their co-workers threatened to tell their boss that H promised to leave me and be with her forever and take care of her, etc. Oh, and she allegedly filed for D from her H, but then brought blank divorce papers into a sales meeting and announced in front of people that she would not be needing them anymore. But now she says she filed again. Who knows? They are so dramatic. It just goes on, and if this was not my life, it would be hilarious to witness. I have become the perpetrator in their sick love triangle, to which I have told my H I want no part of. However, he keeps blabbing this info to me. I know I should not listen. It is so hard to detach. We have attended Mick 2 more times, as I wanted to use Mick counseling to create a plan to have a separation in the house and try to get some honesty. But I think the Missy is not very effective, as the counselor seems to coddle my HO. It's bizarre. The counselor says things such as, even if H wants to reconcile, that he cannot just turn his feelings off for the other woman or jump back into our relationship, etc. It's fun, to which I have responded that even if I considered RO, these thoughts are unacceptable to me. He would be either in or he is out. Oh, moping, etc. Mick does not seem to appreciate, nor does my H, that I want to take the hard line here. It is obvious H is playing at breaking up with her. Someone used that phrase in response to my previous post, and I liked it, as he refuses to block her number because she will embarrass him at work about it. Sounds like she may, but still, he should not have behaved in a way to embarrass himself. Has not really aggressively looked for another job, has updated his resume, but I really believe they are in contact more than I know. I still believe they are either together, with her texts meant to upset me, or he will go back to her in a matter of minutes, days, or hours. I mean, they are soulmates. Hate that word? As for my divorce proceedings, she says he will not divorce me still. And if I really want a divorce, he will give me 20 of everything. How generous. I told him I would take a chance with a judge. She thinks he is trying to reconcile because he arranged for us to meet at the restaurant, where we first met. I left after it became clear he was wanting to rug sweep everything. And because he is telling people we are getting back together. We are also both in a wedding this summer, as an usher and bridesmaid, so that may be interesting. He also seems preoccupied that I was dating after I served divorce papers. I was not, has told me that I was spotted. That I went on more than a dozen dates, and people told him I was dating. None of this is true, but I am assuming he says it because then he thinks that my conduct is equal to his. Give me a break. I have met some nice guys, one in particular when I have been out, but I am in no way ready to date anyone. It would not be fair to them or me. So hopefully, when I am ready, I can meet a nice man who will be loyal, honest, and appreciate me. Also, I do have guy friends who have continuously told me not to take him back because he thinks I am his doormat, etc. I am lonely though and upset that at 33, I may never have the family I always wanted. So, the drama has not stopped. I need to detach further, but we will have to continue living in the same house until he agrees to sell, buys me out, or the house is ordered sold by the court. I have been seeing my own IC since November, but do not know if it is really helping, and I'm thinking I need anti-anxiety meds perhaps, as the days just seem to get worse and my anxiety is through the roof. It is still so sad to me that this has all happened. Which I could get to the anger stage, or better yet, indifference. It just seems that everywhere I go something reminds me of all our time together. The good times, and I also wish I did not love him so much. But I guess you have to go through hell to get to heaven sometimes. A lot easier said than done. I just wish he had listened and reformed when I caught the emotional affair, or maybe been a loyal husband. As well as that I could actually believe he was remorseful. He keeps saying he does not want to be with another woman regardless of what happens with us. So, while every day is something new, I need to start thinking of me. I think that is the gist. Sorry I'm so long-winded. He also was passed over for a huge promotion at work, which we had been hoping for over 3 years, and he had been told for years was going to be his. So I wonder if his conduct had anything to do with it. Doubted as he works with the old boys club type men, he is selfish and weak. Even his parents say that he's so easily influenced by anyone he is with. It is like he has situational morals, so he conforms to whomever he was with, which is why his family thought he was so wonderful over the past decade plus with me. Also, as to moving out, one problem is money at the present because if either of us goes, we are still responsible for 50 of a very large mortgage. Every month and other large expenses we are both responsible for. Asked me if I had a friend. I could stay with even a few nights a week, it would be heaven. Half a year later, well, in the last 6 months, life has turned for the better. Initially, but I am now in a much better place, and despite many ups and downs, I'm starting to live life again without my STBX. I also wanted to say that everyone's assessment of my UL and his affair was correct. His affair was correct, and I wish I had listened sooner. It would have saved me months of pain. Since my last post, I made many stupid decisions, including attempting reconciliation with my Y throughout the months of March to May. May all attempted to prove that his affair was over, and despite his not meeting all of the boundaries I requested. We were attempting to reconcile. He was home every night and would allow me to check his phone, but I was so unhappy and suspicious all the time. I was consumed with fear and suspicion that my life was even less enjoyable than before. I would be filled with fear and worry all day when he was at work, and would not even begin to relax until he came home. She works with other women. The crazy texts from another woman kept coming. These texts were psychotic and allegedly never responded, but I began to find more and more evidence that this was a lie. Basically, he would just delete his replies. By the end of May, she threatened to commit suicide if he did not come back to her and just continued to go off the rails. And the worst part was he would ask for my advice as to how to handle all this. He still refused to block her number because he did not want her embarrassing him at work, still wore his wedding band, and was still gaslighting me all the time. Thinking back, I cannot believe how stupid I was. I knew he was lying and gaslighting me, but I was so desperate to get my old pre-affair life back that it was almost as if I accepted his lies and any explanation he offered so I would not rock the boat. But I was becoming more and more defeated and depressed every day. We still were in MEC, which was a waste of time, and he was in IC, which was an even bigger waste of his time, because he would only stay for 30 minutes, and then in June told me the IG discharged him because he was cured. This is high clans. It was just a circus. The stories and things he told me, people would not and do not believe. I know so much about his affair that I cannot even imagine what else there is to know. I honestly have a hard time even remembering some of the crazy stuff now, because it just seems like it was a lifetime ago. We then went in YCC in the beginning of June, as I accompanied him on a business trip, and our time together was not good. I was suspicious the whole time. She kept texting insane things about me, and we had no bedroom life. As my husband was having issues, he developed a chafing type of rash in his area, and it hurt him if it was touched, haha. As well as my woo seemed to have no desire for me at all. Then a week after we came back from IYC, we left for a Mexican vacation that he planned to get us back on track. Big mistake. The first 2 days in Mexico were great. It seemed like we were back to our old selves and had lots of fun. He even purchased timeshare in both of our names. However, by the third day, he was completely withdrawn and wanted to just sleep and lie by the pool. This was not my way before. He never even liked beach vacations because he always wants to be active. So, I began noticing more and more that he was withdrawing, and it became apparent that it was because he missed her. See, he did not have his phone in Mexico, so he could not even text with her. I tried to dance around him and plan activities he would like, but he was not interested. He just wanted to sit by the pool or lie in the room watching TV, and of course, we hardly had any physical relationship, and that took such a toll on my self-esteem. It was so bad that my hoe was not attracted to me, because pre-affair we never had any issues. Never had any issues like this at all. So as the trip progressed, I became increasingly upset and agitated, and my way began talking differently, acting like he was back in the affair fog, and I knew what was happening. I was so upset that I remember thinking how wonderful it would be if we could just stay in Mexico, because then everything would be okay. God, I was so desperate and unhealthy. Well, on the morning we were flying home, I said something like he seemed to be on the fence again, and he responded, "No, I'm not on the fence anymore." By the time we got to the US for a layover, I had called my lawyer to speed things up, and my who looked at me and said he was so sorry, but he did not love me. Did not want to be married to me, and really wanted to have children, but just not with me, and had never wanted any kids with me. All of this on an escalator at the Houston airport. He then proceeded to disappear for the layover, but I stumbled upon him on the phone with her. We then had to fly back to the East Coast, and I cried sitting next to him the whole flight back in first class. This was the first time I ever flew first class, and I did not even get to enjoy it. Oh, we arrived home. He moved out to the guest room, and at 11:30 p.m., packed some clothes and left to see her, leaving me standing in the kitchen. I was paralyzed and did not speak with him for 2 weeks. Also, it turns out that when we were in Mexico, his owl called my office hysterical, asking where I was I on vacation in Mexico, etc. Fortunately, my assistant knows what has occurred, so she was prepared to deal with this. Had other people call my office looking for me, and a suspicious vehicle was observed in my driveway, and I think she may have been in my home but cannot prove it. I informed Way of this, and he wasn't surprised at all, just asked if anything was stolen. This was around mid-June and I was a mess. Back again, well, with the help of my mother, whose family, who has completely supported me and cannot believe HHLS is such a liar, and very, very good friends. I remember waking up on the morning of July 1st, and I was happy. I had reached indifference to WH, a feeling I desperately wanted for so long. Well, I was scared about what was ahead of me. I knew it had to be better than the life with WH. I was happy and loving life. I had a great and busy summer. I was even in my sister's wedding. So was Whitley in July and had a great time. Of course, it helped that who did not speak to anyone at the wedding, and everyone kept telling me how divorce agrees with me and how awful he looked. Also, at this point, was living with other women every night except Cetus, and I just stayed away from him when he was in the house. Karma started kicking in for him in August, when he began calling me crying that he hated his life and needed to get away from her. The same story we heard in the winter and spring. Except this time, I was not buying it and I was happy. Sure, and other women were fighting all the time. He was staying out all night on her, and she was calling him crying. Other woman still has not filed for divorce. She wants Wei to fill out the D papers for her. Was not happy that she rearranged her work schedule to be identical to his, and he did not like playing stepdad to her 8-year-old son. He never had a free moment, and apparently he was so miserable he was out drinking. He has a drinking problem. Always has. And doing God knows what else 6 nights a week without her. Oh, and he kept begging me to come back. I do think he was cheating on her already. He then started staying at our home more, sleeping in my bed, etc. I tried to stay out of the home whenever he was there, but unfortunately that was not always possible. He then kept begging me not to divorce him and wanted to make the marriage work, etc. I did not buy any of his lines this time, and I know he just does not want to divorce me because he does not want to really commit to her. Because as he has said he cannot be with her, look at what she did to her husband and child. However, he did just get back from an international vacation with her, which he denies, but I have proof and do not care. However, it's so funny that he loves me so much and wants to get back together, but takes a vacation to the Far East with his other woman over the anniversary of my father's death, our wedding anniversary, and he missed a family funeral. He is crazy. He then proceeded to buy me flowers and an anniversary card when he returned home. I am proceeding with D and would like it done ASAP. As for me, I never realized how many great friends I had, how much I am loved and so very lucky. Honestly, without my family, friends, and this site, I do not know how I would have survived. Even my in-laws support me. They've not met the other woman because won't introduce her. He continues to lie to them, and my mother-in-law is so upset at her son and has informed me she will never accept this relationship. My sister-in-law and I are closer than ever. I am the one who babysits her daughter, and I am the one who has a relationship with his family. He will not even talk to them and has told me he has to give them up because he has lied to them so much. Anyway, I had a very great summer. I have dated even though I did not plan to so soon. However, due to all the emotional abuse and turmoil I lived with, I was not ready, and unfortunately because of my trust issues, I pushed away a nice man because I could not trust anything he said or did, even though he was completely trustworthy. I do feel awful that I hurt someone, but I had thought I was ready to date. And it was not until things started to slowly progress and my AUA appeared again and started bothering me with more of his lies and deceit that my trust issues started to appear. I actually had not realized how emotionally damaged I was from my years with love. I guess it is a lesson learned. But I just wish I did not hurt anyone else's feelings in the process. My comment: you guys like long stories. I think these stories are great when you're driving or doing garden work. Let me know if you like longer or shorter stories, and I will see you in the next one.